Thanks for spending a few minutes with us today, Coach. We're going to start with David Lake from 24/7 Sports. David?
Hey, Coach. We got to talk to Jake, obviously, today, and just wanted to see if you could share more, just contextually, provide context about his performance in the scrimmage. Obviously, put up big numbers, but, just curious how he looked in your opinion. And, did he get many first-team reps, or were the majority of those snaps with the second and third team?
Oh gosh, it's been so long. I'll have to. I know we got reps with the first team. I can't give you the proper breakdown on that. I think what impressed everyone was Jake was not cleared for team settings until the day before that scrimmage, and so that Friday we went out and practiced. Just in helmets. And then all of a sudden, bang! Here goes your first scrimmage. So I think the way he handled himself, because that first scrimmage day a lot of times can be overwhelming. You're out there, the coaches are off the field. You're just kind of out there on your own. You get the real live accountability of, negative plays, go backwards and all that. And I thought the way that Jake just looked like a guy that day that had just been around a long time, that it just was not in all the moment. Was very comfortable, in addition to the fact of the throws and all that type of stuff. I think that was the thing that everybody on the staff was most pleased about. And obviously both quarterbacks played very well that day. But now what happens is, more install keeps coming and that, you did a good thing. Okay, now you got to keep going. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens at the end of this week and how it looks with scrimmage too. There'll be more defense and just more, more stuff coming at you.
Coach, we've got Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom?
Thanks, Cam. Hey, Manny, how you doing?
Good, Tom. How are you?
Good, thanks. Hey, I'm going to take you away from the quarterback talk a little bit, and I'm sure you talked about this earlier, so forgive me. But Zach McLeod, how much of first of all, how is he doing in this transition? I know it's been at a little bit here this spring, and also, is it is it much of a transition going from where he was to defensive end?
I will tell you, it is a transition, and Zach is, to be quite honest, he has exceeded my expectations. Not that I didn't think he would do well there. I didn't think he would look so natural so soon. And, the closest comparison I can think of in the time that I've been here is when, when we first got here, when we put Trent Harris at defensive end, and Trent really, his 2 years from 16 and 17, I think, was as productive as anybody that we had. And Zach, sometimes when you just take somebody out of, Manny Lawson, who, you've heard compare with the Greg Rousseau comparisons. Manny played linebacker for us for 2 years at NC State, and then we moved him to defensive end. And there's some guys, when you just take out, that when you say, hey, just go at defensive end, there's a lot more just go. Where at linebacker, you have to kind of process where you need to go. And a guy like Zach, who's as tough as they come, and then also because he's so experienced and he's so intelligent, he wants to learn. So he's just soaking up all of Jeff Simpson's coaching like a sponge. He looks like he's played defensive end a lot more than 10 days in practice. I'll tell you that.
And real quick, if I could, he's been here a while, so he's seen a lot of defensive ends. How much is that? Guys who are going to be, great pros, how much do you think that's helped him? Because I'm sure he's studied all that stuff.
I hope he has. And obviously schematically what we do, we've had an end with 8 sacks every year since we've been here. And I think there's only 2 teams in the country that something like that have done that. So, defensive end is a glamour position in this defense. It's like batting cleanup. I mean, we expect our defensive ends to make plays, and part of it's by design, and part of the guys we've had. So yeah, we've had some great examples to watch. Obviously, the ones that have been through here, were in here last week for Pro Day.
Coach, we've got Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald. Barry?
Hi, Manny. Just wanted to ask you, who has been unavailable for large chunks of spring so far, besides obviously Silvera, Mallory, and Al Blades working himself back? And we hadn't heard Isaiah Walker's name raised. How's he coming along?
Yeah, no, Isaiah has been getting better. I'm trying to think of who else that, other than who you've mentioned. I mean, all of our long-term guys that we kind of knew about before the spring have been there. We've had some guys in and out for protocol reasons, just because we're still not past, all of that type of deal. But I can't think of I can't think of anybody else other than the long-term guys, that have been missing.
Yeah, we hadn't heard DeAndre Johnson mentioned much. Has he been participating fully? How's he looked?
Yeah, DeAndre, in a team setting, today was his first day in a team setting again, just for health protocol reasons, and excited to get him more and more reps here as we close out spring.
Thank you.
Coach, we're going to go to Chris Stockton inside the U. Chris?
Yeah, you've completed 10 practices now, the one scrimmage. Is there something that stands out to you that you're most pleased with through these 10 practices? And then also, Manny, just an update on the running game. I asked you before, you felt like the scrimmage would be more telling. If you could just update on how things are going with the running game.
Well, I think the two things maybe going hand in hand to answer your question is I do think our depth on our offensive line, I think the second year of being in the system, second year of being with Coach Justice, I think the athleticism of the guys that we have and the ability that we may be able to roll, for sure more than 5. It could be 7, 8, even 9 guys that could roll through there and not expect a drop off. I think that's been very encouraging. Spring ball, the run game, as I mentioned before, someone's going to be mad on every play because defensively that's been our main objective this spring, is to eliminate the runs that we had against us a year ago. So like I mentioned, I do think the defensive line played, maybe edged it in the first scrimmage, but that's been a constant back and forth, and we're slowly becoming a more physical team up front in both lines of scrimmage, but still a lot of work to be done to be where we want to be.
Got a couple more for you, Coach. We're going to go to Manny Navarro at The Athletic. Manny?
Hey, Coach Diaz. We've seen some of the recruits post how they're going to start taking official visits here, I guess, in June to Miami. And just curious, as far as some of the protocols and rules that you had in place last year with allowing guys to commit and what a commitment means and so forth. Any changes with everything you guys have had to endure, with the pandemic and not being able to have recruits on campus?
Well, yeah, I mean, what hasn't changed? This June is going to be a very different June, I think, than any other June in the history of. I mean, this class is unlike any other class, right? There will be more official visits taken in June than ever before. We will certainly host more. And again, this is every school in the country. There's still the big asterisk that the dead period is lifted. That has not been finalized, but everybody's planning as if that's going to be the case. We don't, everyone in the country still doesn't know what does a visit look like. Are there any type of protocols that go in place? So there's still a lot of balls in the air in terms of what will actually happen logistically. But in terms of how we operate, like I said, I think some things I think there's going to be a big surge of visits. I think there'll be a big surge of commits in the summer of guys that want to go see a lot of places and then maybe get their decision done before the season. I think some guys will play it out into the year. And so, as we've known with everything, Manny, since last March, is that you have to adjust to the situation and be flexible. But I think our basic rules of recruiting have served us well, and we'll continue to go by those.
Coach, we've got Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald. Susan?
Hey, Manny, how are you?
Good, Susan. How are you?
Good. Could you elaborate a little bit on the scrimmage format for later this week? I'm just, how the quarterbacks will divide the snaps, if it will be at night, and also just wanted to hear a bit on the quarterback competition. Who's in the lead now and why? We
will go in the evening time. We scrimmage in a game format. So it's just, we put an amount of time on the clock, given the depth and the amount of people that we have. And as long as we think we can scrimmage for, we move the ball, we've kicking plays. We try to get as many situations, could be backed up, could be a sudden change. Just could be a 1-minute drill, whatever happens organically just through the course of the game to try to simulate the situations that we'll see in the fall. We haven't even discussed yet in terms of how the quarterback's reps will be divided up for Friday night because we still have another practice between even now and then. But I will say this too. When in the springtime, this is such a unique spring, as I mentioned before. We have so much depth. So we go ones versus ones in the spring, but we have more than 11 ones. In fact, we've made a big deal about not really having ones this spring. We have a lot of guys that can go with the first team. We got some guys that are learning that go more with the second team, and some guys split with both. So it's not quite as cut and dry as like, well, you'll always be a 1 and you'll always be a 2. I think that's not what we want this spring. We're trying to keep the competition fluid keep everybody a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Thank you.
Coach, we got David Furones from the Sentinel. Dave, yes, Sun Sentinel. David, go ahead. My bad.
Either one works. Thanks. 2 questions for you, Manny. An update on the spring game and who will be allowed to attend at Hard Rock Stadium on the 17th. And second question is, do you see any of the wide receivers separating themselves from the crowded competition so far?
The spring game right now, nothing's changed in terms of that. And then in terms of the wide receivers, I think the entire group has made progress. I think Mike Harley still is a leader of the group and sets the tone with the way that he works. But all the other guys are getting better. I think Rambo has given us a big shot in the arm. Pope Wiggins continued to improve. Xavier Restrepo makes plays every day in practice. Mike Redding getting back in the mix has helped. Daz Worsham has really made a stride. Keyshawn Smith, we still think he's got a big future and is pushing everybody. And so again, that's why, like I mentioned in the last question, we're not into ones. We're into like guys just coming out every day and competing and seeing who, through the spring, through summer workouts, 7-on-7 when we can't be there as coaches, and then to training camp, try and find the best team we have. I'd still believe in the wide receiver room that we will play more than 3. I know we'll play more than 3. I'm hoping that we have 6 to 8 that can go in and there should be no noticeable drop off when they're in there. That might be ambitious on my part, but I think we've got enough guys that can push and compete. I'm not saying the snaps are even, but guys that really go in the game and execute still at a high level.
Last 2 for you, Coach. We're going to go to Gary Furman at Canesport. Gary?
Hey, Manny, how are you? I got a 2-part question. The first is, I'm sure that you're seeing what's going on with basketball, and they're trending towards 1,500 to 2,000 kids in the transfer portal right now. What do you see happening in football? What is your game plan to deal with it? How many scholarships do you think you might allow to transfers here moving forward? And then the second part of my question was just, how is the adjustment going to being back to being the defensive coordinator?
How is the adjustment being back to being the defense coordinator, you said?
Yeah, that was the second part of my question. Yeah.
I'll start with that. I mean, to me, that's been natural, because as I mentioned, I already had a role. I think just getting into, the play calling and some of the other places that I was not involved in the past. I've been doing that a long time, so I think that's been fun. I think it's been easy. I think how our kids play will be more important than who calls the play or what the play is. But I think the guys are responding, and I think defensively we're trying to get back to having a little bit of edge about us. I just think we lost our edge. That Miami's always had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder the way we play defense, and it wasn't around, and so that's what this spring's been about. In terms of the transfer portal, I think I saw last week there's a website that tracks it. I think football has 2,500 players in the transfer portal right now. And not all of those were scholarship players. But, Gary, we're all waiting because as I think I mentioned in the setting before, if we stay stuck at 25 initials, then there's going to be a problem going forward because players can leave your team, but you don't have the ability to replace them. And so it's not going to be very difficult to imagine a scenario where one position group walks out and you may only have signed one guy that year, a normal year to replace him. And if all your backups leave because they don't want to be backups, and you can't replace them, it's going to be very hard to field the football team. So this is the law of unintended consequences. So I don't know if anybody knows how that's going to work out down the road because, like I said, we're kind of building the airplane mid-flight. And so I think again, as I mentioned with them talking to Manny earlier, we have to just adjust to the scenario. I think we've done a good job in the portal in the first couple of years of its existence, but things are changing rather rapidly right now. And the best thing we can do is have a program where the players want to stay. We had a lot of guys that chose to come back. I think our players enjoy the experience of playing here. I think they're here for the right reasons. I think they want to be a part of what we're building here. And I think we've always been attractive to players when they see the world a little bit differently. After being in college, maybe it's different to being a high school recruit and understand the pluses that this program has. But like I said, this is all evolving in real time, and we'll just continue to evolve our protocols and strategy with it.
Last one for you, Coach. We got Donovan Campbell from SVN. Donovan, go ahead.
What's going on, Coach Diaz? How you doing, boss?
I'm doing well, Donovan. How are you doing?
I can't complain, man. Thanks for asking. From the scrimmages, the practices that you've seen, if the season started tomorrow,
Donovan, I think you might be breaking up.
oh, can you hear me, Coach?
Yes.
Yeah, try again.
I'm sorry. I was like, with all the scrimmages that you've seen, the practices and so forth, if you had to start the season tomorrow, who'd be your starting quarterback?
Well, that's the whole point, Donovan. The season doesn't start tomorrow, but that's why we're not. If we said who the starting quarterback would be tomorrow, against everything we made this spring out to be, we're trying to not have somebody feel like they can walk on the field today and be our starting quarterback. I would say if you got $1 that you're going to bet on who our starting quarterback is, probably where's number one, with the last name that rhymes with Ming. You know what I mean? So that's the best answer I can give you. But we're not trying to name any starters for anything right now. We don't want anyone to feel like they've accomplished anything. We want to have a really good competition. And like I said, I want that to go all the way through training camp. The last thing we need, especially with as much experience as we have, is guys to be complacent from what they've done so far.
Awesome. Coach, thanks for spending a few minutes with us today. We'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.